Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. I am so excited for this episode of the Women on Top. And I have an amazing, fabulous guest here with me today. I have Jessica Adebiyi, who is Miss United World 2025, which is just amazing. She is so passionate about advocating for underrepresented communities. And she also is the founder of Royalty Houston, which is exactly that. It's a nonprofit that's dedicated to empowering youth and women. She's a young mom. She's a diversity professional and first generation college graduate dedicated to really breaking barriers and creating opportunities, championing global sisterhood, which I just love. And she talks a lot about resilience, inclusion, excellence. So Jessica, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. That was an amazing intro.
I love it. So I am really curious. Just kind of give us some context about how you went from living in a small town, right? You went from living in a small town to now you're wearing a crown as Mrs. United World. So can you kind of give us some context of that background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Louisiana. I'm from Bossier City, Louisiana. Not sure if you've heard of that one or not. It's making its way. It's small compared like size wise, and then even just the city in general. But the biggest thing there is the Air Force Base, Barksdale Air Force Base. So if you're, military kid or know anything about that, then you probably would know Bossier. My dad was in the Air Force, so we were there for most of my childhood. And it was a super small town. Like I said, it still is. I go back home to do things like give back to the community and talk to kids and things like that all the time. So from there, just growing up there, because I was actually always wanted to live in New York City and kind of do like the big city thing. So as soon as I could graduate high school and leave, I was like, I'm out of here. Like most of my high school friends and things like that, they went to like smaller colleges kind of locally. I had my eyes like, no, I'm out of here. So I didn't go to New York though. I actually ended up in Baltimore because I wanted to go to an HBCU. So I went to Morgan State University out there and absolutely loved it. So he ended up finding a job in Houston. And then we ended up in Houston. We've been here for 11 years now. So that's kind of my, path. But throughout that time, I had always, been like an advocate, doing like community service, things like that. I personally didn't have a lot of the things that, I guess I felt like I needed. As far as like mentorship, resources, things like that, because being in a smaller town, like I told you, most of my high school friends, they're still there. And whenever we were thinking, you're graduating, thinking about what you're going to do, I guess the mindset was just that you would go somewhere local, stay home, and just the cycle, keeps going. And for me, I always wanted to do something else. I wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to go outside the city. I knew there was a big world out there, and I wanted to explore it, but I really just didn't have guidance as far as like how to do that. I knew going to college maybe could be one way. So that's why I was like, okay, maybe if I go to out of state school and get some scholarships and things like that, help me pay for it, then, that's one way, but still just didn't know kind of like career wise, like what I wanted to do, how to do it, any of those things. And it's really hard when you're the first in your family to do that. So I ended up like wanting to like give back and give resources and just help students or just folks in my position not to have to struggle as hard as I did to kind of find your way. And that's actually how I ended up getting into pageantry too. And then eventually starting my own nonprofit.
Oh my gosh. What a journey that you've had. So,
Yeah.
okay. I have a couple questions, but
Yeah, sorry about
first,
that. I feel like I just
no, it was perfect. I'm so excited. So the first question I have is it can be really tough when you've never seen somebody in your family do what you want to do. So
Yeah.
how did you pursue that dream? And like I guess was there somebody or something that was like drawing you forward? Because a lot of times we
Yeah.
have like some sort of motivator or something that
Mhm.
really brings us along. So what was that for you?
Well, okay, so taking a couple steps back, so I work in diversity now, but that wasn't always the plan for me. I actually wanted to be an architect at one point. So I always would like draw and do things. Well, initially I wanted to be a fashion designer, but like whenever you have like anyone will tell you like first generation parents, like if you're just coming to this country or just parents who struggle, they do not want to hear like things like be a fashion designer, be an actress, be they are thinking like, no, I want you to be better than me. I want you to be have a successful career. Like you're gonna be a lawyer, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna do something like that. And so that's kind of how my dad was thinking. He was like, no, fashion, like that's like hit or miss. Like you can't do fashion, do be an architect. So when I was little, Joe in my head was just like, okay, be an architect, be an architect. When I ended up going to school though, I didn't really feel like that was my passion or what I wanted to do. So I ended up changing my major quite a few times. I went from architecture to, I was hanging out with a lot of the engineering kids. So, because the schools were like right next to each other. So then I kind of played with that a little bit. And I was like, no, not engineering. I'm not like a math and science girl. I don't want to do that. And then I settled on actually wanting to be a lawyer. And that kind of my career tells a really interesting story. So I decided to go into law. So I changed my major to pre-law and business and finished with that. And then once I got out and then we moved to Houston, I was looking for a job and I was like, okay, let me try like a staffing agency. Ended up going to a staffing agency and just because I was super creative and they loved my interview, they ended up hiring me internally to work at the staffing agency. From there, I would see all these really interesting like careers or jobs come across my desk that I was hired to fill. And it really opened my eyes to wow, there's so many different opportunities out there. And that's another thing that I do through my nonprofit too. It's because a lot of us, like I hadn't been exposed to all of these different opportunities. I had no idea you could be a diversity, professional, or you could do all these different interesting things in HR or just kind of behind the scenes as far as like working in a law firm. And so I changed from wanting to be a lawyer and really just wanted to advocate for the people in a different way. And so that's kind of how I moved from law. I was actually had passed LSAT, about to start law school, and then I was like, you know what? Let's change this. And then just ended up taking one of my first positions in what they call big law. It's one of the what they call it AM 100 major law firms representing companies like Walmart and Delta Airlines and just really big companies. And I saw a whole new world. I mean, Valerie, I was just like, it opened my eyes to something. I was like, wow, this is really great. However, I still don't see a lot of folks that look like me here.
Mm.
There, I mean, even today, and it's about to be 2025, it's 4% African Americans are lawyers. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Only 4%. And then it's even, a smaller if you look at like first generation college graduates, if you look at, immigrants, if you look at low income, students from low income backgrounds and just different things like that. And even you break down numbers, if you look at Indians, if you look at Asians, I mean, it gets smaller, smaller, smaller. And so I really just wanted to kind of understand why that was. And a lot of it was a lot of what I went through, not having the resources, not having mentorship, not being exposed to it. And so that became my mission to really kind of help those numbers, right? And increase those rates. And so that's kind of brings me to where I am today.
Oh my gosh. I love what you shared about like, this is how it became my mission
Yeah.
because I think it's so impactful for people to hear too, especially women, that it's okay to change your mind if you
Oh, yeah.
know that this is not the thing. And then you find something that's like, this is actually like a big problem that speaks to me that I want to help be a part of, which I think is what you like truly found. Like
Yeah.
there are only how many 4% of African
Yeah.
Americans in law? That's staggering. That's
Yeah.
staggering. So can you talk about how like what is some of the work that you do now
Yeah.
and the company that you started? Yeah, just share a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Sure. So a couple years ago, I started pageantry, and that's what kind of led me into starting my own nonprofit because, first of all, going back a little bit more, being from a small town, what opened my eyes to, oh my gosh, there's a New York out there. Oh my gosh, it's all these things. Is because when I was a little girl, my mom did put me in like these little like acting things. And so I was really intrigued by that world, the glitz and the glam of it all. I wanted to go to New York. Oh, and cool thing is I'll get to do New York Fashion Week this year. A dream come true, really
Yeah.
like, full circle moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was just always really just into just like the glitz and the glam fashion. Like I said, I wanted to be a fashion designer, all of these amazing things. I felt like, oh my gosh, my dreams are bigger than the city. I hate to say it that way, but just, you know what I mean? Like I just had so much more I wanted to do. I've always been super creative. So that never left me. Although, I got into this professional career of, working in diversity, working in, legal and all that kind of thing. I still just had that burning desire to be creative. I always loved fashion and beauty. And then too, also another thing that people don't know about pageantry, it is about woman empowerment. Even at work, I've actually always had a negative view with women coming together just because I always had to dealt with, whether it was jealousy, whether it was cattiness at work, mean girls at work. I mean, we're in our, late 20s and 30s and there's still cliques. And I was always on the outside of that. I never fit in. But I've always wanted like that sisterhood. I've always wanted to be around other women because I root for us. I want to see more powerful women out there killing it. And I want to be a part of like standing next to another great woman. So when I was able to find a system like United World, which is the system that I'm a part of, that was about unifying women. It was about none of the cattiness. The director actually stands against that. She cuts all that out. You go through interviews so she can really get to know your personality, who you are, to make sure that the right folks are representing this pageant system. So when I saw that, it really resonated with me because I knew that is something I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of sisterhood. I want to be a part of empowering women and then using that platform to do the work that I've been doing through advocating for underrepresented communities. And I just knew it was a perfect fit for me. So I joined as a, what did you call it, at-large title. So I was Mrs. Southern States for the last 2 years. That's where, like I said, you go through an interview, you do paperwork, and you're selected to represent like a certain region or things like that. And then you go on to compete for an international title. So I did that. And throughout my rank, I was able to really get down, get my hands dirty and work in my community. I helped to put together an internship program for first generation college students. I also helped to we did this really cool mentoring program, which is kind of like a speed dating, but we call it speed mentoring, where students get to talk to various folks from different careers, different backgrounds, and just get exposed to things that they wouldn't necessarily get to on their, day to day.
Mhm.
I help with food, weekend meals and holiday meals. Something that really touched my heart was just learning that here in Houston, we have food deserts. I don't know if you know about that. It's where someone lives within so many miles of like a grocery store where there's not one. Like the closest thing to them would be maybe a gas station. And that's where they have to rely on their milk and their produce and things like that. And or just if they don't have it, just snacks, right? Just not very healthy food. And then some of the kids that live in these food deserts, they rely on school lunches. When it's Christmas time, everyone else is excited. Oh my gosh, 2 weeks off. They're dreading it because they're not going to have food to eat. And what I learned is a lot of times that really breaks the concentration of a student. Like, who cares about going to college? Who cares about any of this? I just want to know where my next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
And so just really helping with that project was something really passionate. for me, because I understand that whenever you're able to improve someone's quality of life, then they can focus on really what they should be focusing on as students, not, if they're going to have school supplies, what their Christmas is going to look like, if they're going to have food, even for the girls, if they're going to have the hygiene products that they need when they're having their menstrual and things like that. A lot of girls wouldn't go to school because they don't have what they need. And so I really just dug in and was able to help with a lot of those projects. And then from that, then got to talk to them about dreaming big. A really great program that I like to do, and I just did it recently, was about having limitless dreams. And I always started off by telling students, we all go to sleep at night and we dream, right? And when you're a dream, you can be whoever you want, you can do whatever you want, you have no limits. What if I told you that you can do that in real life? You can actually do that in real life, and we can build steps to help you reach those goals. Because it's all about what I learned. It's all about planning, figuring out what you want to do and then figuring out a plan. And then I'm here to help you get the resources so that you can kind of connect those dots and can actually make it a reality. So those are the type of projects that I've been doing, and I'm really, really excited about it. In May, we officially became a nonprofit, and that's what Royalty Houston came about. But like I said, I've been doing the work for 2+ years already. So I had a track record, became an official nonprofit. And yeah, so the work doesn't stop, and I'm just excited to keep it going.
That's amazing. I just love how involved you are with your community. I mean, we can feel, the passion and the energy behind it. And it's such meaningful work. And I'm sure so rewarding
Oh my
to
gosh, yes.
witness the transformation that can happen from these students, from these
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's your company is Royalty Houston, and that's some of the
Yes.
projects and the work that you're involved in, right?
Yes.
So I wanna kind of go back to the pageant part of it. And I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like how I think you kind of mentioned how you got involved with the pageant itself and the one that you that you won and that
Yes.
you wear the crown for. But what were some of those lessons that you learned? I've never been through a pageant, and I think a lot of women probably just only would aspire or just like, gosh,
Yeah.
I wonder what that's like. So I'd love to
Mhm.
just have you kind of paint a little bit of a picture of what a pageant even is like, and then what some of those lessons were, the biggest lessons you've learned.
Yeah, so I always say that a pageant weekend is literally like a girls' trip. A girls' weekend. Seriously, I mean, and
Love
especially if
it.
you choose the right system. There's a lot of systems out there. First it was just the Americas and USA's, but there's so many other systems that have come about to make sure they can resonate with you, right? So it's just like selecting anything else that you want to do. If you want to be a part of something, even a job, right? Like it's not just the job interviewing you, you're kind of interviewing the job too, because that's where you spend most of your life. So you want to make sure it's a good fit. And the good thing that there's so many new pageant systems out there, you can select the system that resonates with you, that's the right fit for you. Right. And so when you do that, that's when you'll have the most fun, I think, because you're around your people, your tribe. And I really feel like I found that with United World. So pageant weekend, I really look forward to it. I'm a boy mom for one. And then even our animals are boys or so I really need the girl time.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy pageant weekend. It's a lot of well, for United World, I can speak for that one. It is a lot of like unity things that we do. We have a bowling party, we have a pajama party, we do fun girl things like that, just bonding and getting to know one another and just kind of a time for you to woosah, because up until that point you are rehearsing, you're practicing, you're mentally preparing yourself, you're physically preparing yourself, and so this is really a time for you to kind of woosah, have some fun before the big day. And then, I mean, of course, everyone is a little nervous because everyone wants to win, right? But at the same time, you are gaining friendships. A lot of the women that I competed with, I like to say with and not against, because we stand on the stage together, went through this process together. So I competed with them. And a lot of them, we are still friends to this day. Although I left with the crown, we still connect, we're doing projects together, so you really do build a sisterhood of lifelong friends, honestly, again, when you pick the right system.
Yeah.
So that is something that I got from it. And then as far as just lessons, like I mentioned, up until the point you're preparing, right? So it's kind of like any sort of competition. It's a sport. Some folks like to call it a sport, right? Because you're training yourself for your entire year. While you're giving back, you do have a platform that you must stand on. You have to have something that you believe in and that you're working towards. And that's what my nonprofit is for me. But outside of that, so you have that work that you're doing, but then you also have to like self-prepare. And so for me, it really starts with mental. Just getting my mindset right. You have to go through an interview. That's a part of the competition phase. And with that, honestly, you learn so much about yourself. I know I did. Really, with my pageant coaches, I was able to dig deep. I learned about my challenges, how I was able to overcome those challenges, the ups and the downs of life and how it all came together to just make me who I am. Because you really never know what they're going to ask you. So you really have to do a lot of like, I don't want to soul searching or, that kind of a thing to really just
Yeah.
like dig deep to know who you are. And the important thing about knowing who you are is that is what separates you from everyone else. When I speak to students, that is always a question. And that's something that I try to tell them. They're like, oh my gosh, you won all these different things. But I'm like, yes, but there was a lot of beautiful women. There was a
Mm,
lot of talented women. There's a lot of amazing women doing amazing things. But what makes you different is who you are. No one has your fingerprint. No one has your reflection, even if you have a twin.
yeah. Right.
So so going through that process and just digging deep, understanding who I am, why, and loving who I am, that is the biggest thing that I get out of pageantry. And then it also shows me who I am as far as like what I need to work on, because none
Yeah.
of us are perfect. So it shows you your true self if you really do the work the correct way. It lets you know like your weaknesses, and you're able to, improve on that. You're able to really stand in that too, as well, because we all have flaws, and it's good to know where you need to work and how it can help you grow and be a better person. And I like to take those experiences and even share them with the next generation of kids, because today's kids, even my kids, I have a 12-year-old. It's all about, wanting to be perfect, looking like the Instagram, models and all of that stuff, and thinking
Mm,
there's this picture perfect life, and that's not reality.
yeah. Gosh, I just love hearing your experience. And again, like going through a pageant feels like almost like a healing journey, like kind of this
Oh
coming
yeah.
back to yourself. Um, and like you said, just that's really like, it sounds like the biggest differentiator for you was showing up as your most expressed version of you. And
Yes.
that was the thing that kind of helped you stand out. What was it like to win? Like, what was it like? I mean, so for those listening, she's wearing this amazing crown. And I am like, oh my gosh, as a little girl, all you want to do is like grab a crown and put it on your head. I feel
Yes,
like,
yes, yes,
so
yes, for sure.
what is it like to wear that crown? And I know it represents a lot. And what was it like to win?
Honestly, it was surreal to win. Even to this day, our director sent us our autograph card. So the competition was in September. So we're just now in December. So it's just been a couple months for me. And it still hasn't settled in all like just yet. Like I'm Mrs. United World. Like that is like, oh my goodness, it comes with a lot of perks, but a lot of responsibility as well. But still, so when I opened up the mail and I saw my picture on this card and it had Mrs. United World 2025 on it, it was really just still like shocking. I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's my picture. Like I really did it.
Yeah.
It's just so, it was really surreal. Even the moment on the stage, I couldn't believe it because as I mentioned before, every woman up there was deserving. Like any one of
Mm.
us could have taken it home and it would have been well deserved. And even my runner up, I mean, either one of us, like even when I won, she told me that she was like, I knew. I mean, if it wasn't me, it had to be you. Like, I'm so proud of you. And we hugged, we embraced. That was the first thing I did. When they called my name, I leaned in to hug her
Yeah.
immediately, because
Wow.
it could have been either one of us. Like it's literally like a coin toss, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really surreal. I was really excited. It was a lot of emotion as well. My family was there, and then just it was almost like when they say like your life flashes before you.
Yeah.
It was like all the prep, everything just like, oh my gosh, like this is the moment.
Yeah.
And it was great.
That's
It was just,
awesome.
yeah.
Can I bet like looking back at that little girl growing up in the small town,
Oh
that
yeah.
you're just like, wow, like look how far I've come. And what would you say to her now, being in this place, wearing the crown and not even the crown, just like everything you've been through? What would you say to that little girl now?
You know, probably not dim your light. I always
So
knew
good.
growing up that I had something inside of me. Like I told you, I've always had big dreams, things I wanted to do. But sometimes I felt like, why? Maybe not me. Maybe it's going to be my sister. Maybe it's going to be the girl over there, my next door neighbor, not me. But yes, Jessica, it's you. Like, why not you? And so I would just say to keep being yourself, because again, that's what I've learned most is that who I am is what separates me, and what is supposed to happen in my life will happen. It will not pass you by. So
Mm.
if you just stay true to yourself, learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn in your failures. Well, what I always tell my kids is the only L is a lesson. It's never a loss. So you're either going to have a win, you're going to win, or you're going to learn something. So I would just really press into that. And just not dim my light, to be honest, because I know growing up, I tried to do that a lot, thinking like I just told you, like it's not supposed to be me. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really common for women too, just in general,
Yeah.
that we often shine light on other people and somehow we just
Yes.
look
So
at
easy to
us.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we look at ourselves and think, I'm not qualified or I'm not gifted enough or I'm not talented enough.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really good to hear you say that. And I also am curious, did you have someone who you really looked up to throughout this time, or maybe that you still look up to who helps guide you?
Yeah, so like I said, growing up, I did not have mentors. Well, not
Right.
personal mentors, right? Like I
Yeah.
would always look to like, celebrities and stars. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a
Mhm.
really great person. One of the folks, and still to this day, although he's not with us anymore, Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
we should, now this is really cool. Like this is always a fun fact. So we have the same birthday,
Oh,
August 24th, and we're both
wow.
Virgos. And I'm like, you know what? That's why, we have a
Yeah.
connection there. So I've like growing up, I always looked up to him. Although I did not play sports, I just loved his work ethic, the fact that he worked so hard, and that's what really separated him. And my son does play basketball, and I always taught him that. Like Kobe, whenever he was my son's age, so well, my son's 12 now, but when Kobe was 10 or 11, a lot of people don't know this story, but I actually studied him because I really love his quotes. I love what he stands for. So I did a lot of research. And so he said when he was 10 or 11, he couldn't make one shot. So he would
Wow.
like do, yeah, so he would like travel the world or travel around like his city and do like AAU basketball tournaments. And he would never score a shot, like ever. And there was other students or, kids that were like better than him. But what separated him from them and why he ended up going to the NBA and they didn't was his work ethic, because he looked at that not as a loss, he looked at it as a lesson. What do I need to do to improve? And so he outworked everyone. Right. So he, even like up until his death, he would be getting up at like 4 or 5 a.m., starting his day, meditation, all these different
Yeah.
things, working really hard on himself and then on his, practice, whatever it was, basketball, that kind of a thing. Later in life, he started coaching, all of that. But so he really motivated me a lot because that really showed me that work sometimes can outwork talent, right? So you don't have to be the most talented person in the world, but if you work really hard, you can also accomplish things as well. So that really guided a lot of me just growing up and just even me today, just working really
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
That's a really good reminder because I think some of us forget that you can just by being consistent. And I think that's another
Yes.
key.
Showing up, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
like just because somebody else maybe is a little more talented or naturally whatever,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they necessarily are going to be the winner or the one that does it. And that
Exactly.
you can do it just by putting in like the consistent reps. And I really
Yes.
love that as like a reminder to anybody listening who feels a little bit like, oh gosh, well, she just seems so much more naturally whatever. Well, that's great, but she might not even pursue it. She might just be like, ah, this isn't for me.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
I love that. And I also love Kobe. So I haven't done as much research as you, but I'm loving that he was kind of an idol for you. I think we all have those people that, we do kind of have to look to, people who
Yeah.
are proof of what's possible. I always love that saying. And I feel like you are proof of what's possible for other people. And so
Yeah.
I love that you have this beautiful journey and such a mission. So what is next for you? Like, what is kind of on the docket for 2025? What are some of your big dreams that you're still chasing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, so with being Mrs. United World, so we have a platform, we have responsibilities, right? And then also I have my nonprofit. So my goal this year is to, or 2025 is really to just marry them and to use my title to amplify what I'm doing, on the nonprofit sector and giving back. So I get to go to New York for New York Fashion Week. So that is really fun. But while I'm there, I'm going to be also volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club of America, helping out the students there. I'm also going to be doing my own give back through Roy's Houston while I'm there. So I'm working on those things. So I'm trying to balance both. So I'm like, I'm going to do the fun fashion week, but I've got to give back. Like it wouldn't be me if I didn't do something like that as well. So I'm going to be doing that. And I'm also going to be doing some things internationally because as Mrs. United World, it is an international title. So I have the opportunity to go to Paris, also Paris Fashion Week. So I'm going to be doing that, but also doing some nonprofit things, speaking to an all girls school there. There's also going to be a woman empowerment event because another thing, the youth is super important because they're our next generation and we have to prepare them. But also the women of today, that's such an passion of mine as well. Because like you said, a lot of us, we do damn my light. And then when you get married and have kids, you forget who you are sometimes. You lose your identity in them. And they're amazing people, but you are also just as amazing. And you were put
Yeah.
here to do things for yourself too and to, use your voice. And so I'm a really big advocate for helping women to find their voice and to use their voice and empowering them to do so. Because like you said, I'm no different from the next woman. And if I can do it, you can do it. So we'll be doing a woman empowerment event out in London. And then I'm also doing a Queen's Mission trip in Jamaica. So I have a lot of big things coming
Wow.
up and I'm super excited about it. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
guys look out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you guys all need to go follow her right now. So you can just like
Yes.
vicariously live through her, which is what I'm going to do.
Or join the efforts. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah.
collaborators. There's always something that all of us
Mhm.
can do. Honestly, just a little bit. So
I
we can
love that.
connect to do something, we can reach more because I can't do everything by myself. There's people out there in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, even. And if we can band together to make a difference, let's do it.
Yeah, that's so good. Gosh, it makes me think differently about some of what I'm doing. And like, it really is about the collaboration. So I love
Yes.
that. So definitely for anybody listening in, like reach out to her, reach out to me, whoever you need to reach out to get you
Yeah.
connected. You're doing just so many things that are so good, not just for, you and your immediate circle, but for this ripple effect that I just see
That's what
that's
it's about.
helping so many other people. So I'm really inspired by you,
Oh, thank
honestly,
you.
Jessica. This has been really humbling and like really good for me to just hear how much energy and love you have for what you do and just who you're doing it for. And then I've been doing this tradition with all of my guests is asking
Okay.
them to share a piece of wisdom or a quote or just something that they want to leave for the next guest, not knowing who it is. And so I'll share what the last guest shared, and then I'll give you the opportunity to do the same.
Okay.
So the last guest I interviewed said, she found this quote, and now I can't remember who it's from, but she had this quote and I really like it. She said, ever since happiness heard your name, it has been running through the streets trying to find you.
Oh my gosh.
And
Love that.
yeah, I can't remember again. She gave me the name and I should find it, but I really loved the simplicity of that and just
Yeah.
the reminder. And she kind of added that, that there are things that we all want in life and those things are also trying to find us as well. And that, we think that happiness is so fleeting, but really like it's out there and it's trying to come to us too. So I just loved that. And I feel like you certainly are letting happiness find you in lots of different ways. So
Yes, I love that.
yeah, I'd love to offer you the opportunity to leave something for the next guest, not knowing who it is.
Yeah, so I guess mine would be, and it's something that I say often, which is and I'm not sure who said this, but it is your superpower is your reflection. And I actually have little mirrors that I give to students whenever I speak to them that says that. It just really reminds you that no matter what you go through, you can, be a woman on top. You can do all these things, but just always stay true to yourself. And when you look in the mirror, that is who you have to sleep with at night at the end of the day. And you have to be okay with that person. So making sure, like for me, it reminds me to make sure I'm making right decisions that I can live with at the end of the day. And then just being true to myself because no, there's no one else like me. I am me and I can't be anyone else. And that's what separates me. And that is what really kind of maps out my life.
What a good way to round out this episode. I love that. I love the whole idea of the mirror and that is your superpower. What just such a powerful thing to remember, and just really humbled by you, your presence, your time, your willingness to come on and share your light with us. So I just want to say again, thank you. And you are a woman on top. And I'm so glad that there are women out there like you who are helping that next generation believe in what's possible for them too.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate all those kind words. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here, speaking with you, and just you sharing your platform with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.